when the world's too dark of a place to be, and you need an escape from reality. Open up those pages, it's sci-fi or fantasy, whatever genre you please. And join a book club, 'cause you won't read it on your own. Join a book club, so you'll be held accountable. It's just a means to an end, but you're doing it with your friends. So join the book club by DLC.
Good morning, DLC book clubbers. Getting your body moving. I hope you're having a good time. I hope you're ready to talk books, and I hope you're dancing in your seat. I'm Jeff Kanata. I'm here with Lana Bashinsky. Hi, Lana.
Hello, good morning. Slowly getting set up over here. No, don't mind the arsenal in the corner. That's just for my day job. Happy to be here, talk books and normal things.
Let's do it. Lana and I decided we're doing a little ketchup and mustard this morning. Yeah.
Go with that barbecue energy, you know?
Barbecue
We're going to start
energy.
with recommendations for dinner this week.
We need to do a food channel. That's what we need to do. No, we're here to talk about the Malazan Books of the Fallen by Steven Erikson. We are on book 3, or novel 3, Memories of Ice. We are in book 2 of that third novel. And we're talking about chapters 9 and 10 this week. I'm not going to tell folks what we're doing week to week. I just don't know. We're doing 2 chapters this week. I don't know what we're doing next week, but this week, chapters 9 and 10. Some fun, interesting, cool stuff to dig into. But we always start the show with a non-spoiler topic so that if you're not caught up to where we are in the novels, you can still hang out and talk books with us. And Lana, you had a really interesting question for me right before we started, and I'd love to discuss it. What was it?
Yeah. We were actually just talking. I forget immediately. We were just talking right before the show. I had brought up, a potential book recommendation being like, "Ooh, this is," actually saying this is one I wouldn't recommend, but it was something I was obligated to read as a part of a class at one point. And so I was wondering if you have ever been forced to read a book for school or for some other reason. And then you turned out that you loved it, something you went in with low expectations because it's an assignment.
Yeah.
And then now it's something that you would consider something that you enjoyed.
This is a phenomenal question. And I think, honestly, to be really fair, I think more often than not, I've been pleasantly surprised by what I've had to read. Like, I enjoyed The Great Gatsby. I enjoyed To Kill a Mockingbird, like those classics. And I've said to you numerous times, maybe even on this on this channel, that I really hate how it's presented to kids in school. It instead of presenting it like, hey, we as a culture love these works of art so much, we want to share them with you. They're so good, they're so interesting, they're so cool that we have to make every child read them. Mm-hmm. It's always it's instead presented like a chore, like you have to slog through this horrible old thing. Anyway, more often than not, I've enjoyed things, but the book that leaps to mind as being the best example of this for me, when I was in college, I took a class called The History of Jazz, which turned out to be a fascinating class. It was an academic look at the music and culture around jazz and ragtime and bluegrass and stuff like that. And we had to read a book called The Autobiography of an Ex-Colored Man. This is a book that was written in 1912 by James Weldon Johnson. And it is not an autobiography. It is a novel. It is a fictional account. But it is an account of a man who in 1912 or around the turn of the century is biracial and can sort of blend in seamlessly in both white culture and black culture. And when he's in either group, they just assume he's one of them. He's whatever, judgment or prejudice is levied by those groups, it doesn't apply to him because he's this biracial kind of, he can just fit into both groups. And it's fascinating and powerful and interesting. It's really short, But like just an amazing work, and I'd never heard of it obviously before I took that class and came out of it. I still have it in my library, and I cherish having had to read that book because it opened my eyes about an experience that I've never had in my life, and opened my eyes to, this time period. And it's so much, the reason we read it in that class is it talks about ragtime and jazz and that culture that was happening around the turn of the century. And it's an amazing work. So I highly recommend people checking out The Autobiography of an Ex-Colored Man. Do you have an example of something like that?
I do. I feel like my example is, I feel like where this question came from is actually from you mentioning it. I don't know if it was on this show or if it was on Wednesday DLC show or normal DLC, one of the shows, about that presentation of books to kids in school.
Yeah.
I'm like, is it just the word that it's like, oh, do your report? And the idea of doing a report at the time was like, ugh, like homework, wah.
Right.
But I also think that my school did something interesting and kind of, I guess I have like a lot of great things ahead of me now, but I feel like in many schools that I saw, you were forced to read like a bunch of books: To Kill a Mockingbird, Great Gatsby, what's that other one? Catcher in the Rye.
Oh yeah.
Like a bunch of the classics.
The Crucible. Yeah.
Yes. And there were so many to choose from. And my English teacher was like, these books are all so great, rather than being like, we're going to pick one of the classics to read. Here's all of the ones that are part of like the classics. Everybody, there's going to be pairs of people each. So only 2 people get to read each book for this year.
Oh, interesting. So she spread it around.
She spread it around, which now there's so many of those books that I haven't read as a result.
That's why you got to keep in contact with all of your 6th grade friends.
I kept the reports saved on my floppy
distribute
disk.
knowledge among the class.
But I remember going into it being like so disappointed because I got my last choice of book from the table. She drew names, being like Steve and Jane. They're gonna read To Kill a Mockingbird. This person,
yay,
and like
amazing. And then you get like the garbage book at the end.
No, I got what I now perceive when I heard everybody else's reports. Like, all your books were stupid. My book was great. It was Brave New World.
Oh, awesome.
Which I don't know if you've read. I feel like most people must have, at least in
in
North
school
America.
I did, yeah.
Oh my gosh. And I was so rocked by that. It was like me living that exact like revelation that you were mentioning. I'm like, these books that they asked us to read weren't terrible. They wanted us to read it because they were so good. And it has like that sci-fi element. It was like the first time I heard of the word like dystopian future, like all these elements of things that I really like now. And Brave New World was just the one that was like such a shock and so interesting. And like, oh, I understand like
that's so rad.
Their classes. And it was so much fun.
I love it. I love that. It's so cool to have that discovery. And I think that's the point. That's the original point of putting them in school, is so you open these children's eyes to the great works of art that our culture has deemed worthy of being part of the pantheon of things we should all be aware of. Right. And it gets muddied in that delivery, and it becomes this like, oh, that's the old, tired, stale, gross stuff.
Yeah.
And I had that same experience with Shakespeare, right? Because, you're exposed to Shakespeare in school, and it feels like this old fuddy-duddy language, doths, and, everybody mispronouncing it. And it's and then later on, as in acting school and stuff, or even before that, you returned it and you were like, oh, he's like making dirty jokes throughout all this stuff. Like this is like mass appeal entertainment. It's mainstream. At the time, he was just trying to entertain people,
Yeah, I love that. In school, so I went to the school in Edmonton called Victoria School of the Arts. And at the time, at least, you could not replace, but you can do an art assignment along with whatever your normal assignment was for like bonus points. And it wasn't even my class. Somebody else had an English class where they had to transpose some Shakespearean scene into modern language so that you could see what it was like really about and like understand it in your own terms. And
Yeah.
we made like a full movie about the scene and having so much fun and realizing that, oh my God, this is a comedy. This is so funny, especially when we make it in a way that makes sense to us now. It's just great. So yeah, I love that. I love that.
I mean, I fell in love with Shakespeare and I fell in love with language. And I think that you realize, oh my gosh, she's using language in a way that literally no one did before and has done since. And, but it's such a shame that kids are, the way that it is presented to them, I think does a disservice to the fact that we're just showing you this because it's awesome, because everybody agrees it's awesome. It's the strangest thing. That's not how we think about it as children. So anyway.
Yeah. If they had put those books on the table, and rather than being like, we're going to pair off, you're going to do book reports, they put the books on the table and said, these are the most awesome books.
Yeah.
Society's called these the best books.
Yeah.
Get hype. You're going to read one of them. I would have been.
Yeah. It's such a, and I have lots of issues with that kind of thing that we could do a whole other podcast about. I do like the idea of your teacher spreading things out. And I was imagining that what if your teacher did that with math too? It's like, okay, you kids learn 1 through 10. You learn 11 through 20. You learn 21 through 30.
You learn just the decimals.
Yeah. Kids over there, you get multiplication. Yeah. You guys, sorry, short straw. You got division. Anyway, great question, and we appreciate it. If anyone out there has awesome ideas for questions to start the show in our non-spoiler section, please do post them on the YouTube or in the Discord. Link to the Discord is always in our show notes. And great folks hanging out, talking about stuff. So we'd love to talk about topics that you're interested in as well. All right, but we got to get to our chapters this week. So let's do it. Spoilers starting now for chapters 9 and 10 of Memories of Ice by Steven Erikson. The first thing I need to say right at the beginning is to acknowledge how very wrong we were last week about so many things.
I'm going through the comments and I just wanted to, I wish I could have just released like one more video being like, yeah, I if you don't think I don't immediately know everything I got wrong right after the show, I appreciate all the comments and the corrections.
Thank you all. We appreciate you.
Sorry for getting it wrong.
We got lots of Bargasts wrong. I'll just say that.
Let me say this. I was so confident that I felt like I read the word Bargast like 50 million times in the last book. And the fact that it is just like, oh, they mentioned the spear. That really, that spear really stuck through my heart.
But we'll always welcome your corrections and comments. Thank you for keeping us honest. Obviously these are dense books with lots of detail, and we want to get all those details right. And we appreciate when you're watching our backs for us. All right, on to this week's mistakes. We start with chapter 9, scene 1. Talk the Younger, hanging out with Envy and the gang, Lady Envy and the gang. And they are heading toward the Panyian Domain, near the city of Bastion. And Envy has gotten back from seeing some real horrific sights. Talks like, hey, you look like you've seen some stuff. And they kind of have this philosophical discussion about, it's flirty, always flirty with Lady Envy. That's why I like her. But it's a philosophical discussion about what happens when you die. And specifically, what if nothing happens? Which I thought, man, what an amazing thing to just take a moment and contemplate in a book series and fantasy world that's all about, the soul being this physical thing that can be placed in other vessels, and the soul persists, and soul this, soul that, and afterlife, and embodiment of death itself, and all these things that are very metaphysical and fantastical. And yet you have these this very, I think, human and relatable conversation of like, well, what if there's just nothing?
I think that's so fascinating, because I guess the implication then, like, everybody who has ascended like Shadow Throne, I guess we've seen so much death, but in certain times, in certain respects, even in the course of the book, we haven't. We've seen people die, but then they're taken away by ravens, butterflies. We've seen people die or heard about people dying, but really now they're Shadow Throne. Like the idea in this book that there's nothing after death, I guess in my brain, I'm like, whatever the truest death is in this book, that in some senses I feel like we haven't really witnessed outside of the many thousands of nameless soldiers that have died through the course of these novels.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree.
Talk about going through Hood's Gate, but we don't really know what that entails per se.
Mm-hmm.
Talk says, well, it's okay because the Talana Moss have a purpose. They're killing all the Jagat, and Lady Envy is like, well, what if they did it already and they just don't even know it yet? What if that second gathering of the Talana Moss is just them getting back together and being like, oh, hey, guess what, everybody? No reason to continue to exist.
And thinking about it as like there's a way, now it's like going to slip right out of my brain. The second I started the sentence, I felt it going away. But they describe it as like, when they're describing how they currently exist and like how they're able to change form, they're like, that's not us like turning into a
dust.
Like it's just us returning to the form that we're supposed to be in if we hadn't done the ritual.
I know, right? Such a powerful notion.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you get to move around because you can turn into dust and move through the ground and everything. It's like, yeah, that's how what I'm supposed to be all the time.
I'm turning into the ash and dust that my body should have decayed into by this point.
Wild. Such a cool notion. Yeah. I also love that. So this is right. And then right there, a Kel Hunter appears, and the Segula make short work of it amazingly. Just slice and dice this dinosaur. Pretty awesome. And Tool is like, oh, snap. I don't think I could have even done that.
I love this scene. One, that it was so well set up by showing these hunters being brutal and like just decimating a people instantaneously, and having Mock just dispose of it single-handedly without breaking a sweat. And it felt like, to me, Talk was immediately like, it's fight time. Like if he was like him,
Tool,
like
Tool, you mean?
Oh, Tool, yeah, sorry, Tool, like just immediately like, holy moly, and like dropping the gauntlets, being like, we gotta go. I gotta, we gotta make sure we know who actually is in the rank. And then Lady Envy's like, sleep, like a hypnotist. Mox was like,
so
out
awesome
of it instantly.
Because Tool has just been talking about the problems with arrogance. He's like, the real problem is arrogance. Whoa, that guy's better than me? All right, we're fighting. We gotta find out who's the best over here. I mean, don't be arrogant, though.
I also am like, I can't tell if that's like a Talon thing or if he's just like, I get it. I see the culture. I'm here for the culture. Let's go. I'm Tool the, what is he? At least the 7th now, right? He's like, because he fought the other guys. I forget what numbers they were, but
it felt like earlier he would just be like smacking them down and like, oh, this is annoying. These guys and their competition and their hierarchy. This is super annoying. And then he sees Mock like take down a Kel Hunter, and he's like, oh, I'm all about that.
Yeah.
I gotta find out now who's best. Yeah. And you're so right. Lady Envy with like just dealing with the children, dealing with the toddlers, at preschool, just being like, go to sleep, nap time. And Tool's like, no, oh, wake him up. No.
Yeah, he's gonna wake up at some point. And then I'm gonna fight him. Yeah, whenever that is.
To wake him up sometime. It's so funny. And they literally have to drag him around.
The rest of it's so ridiculous. They're like, and then they showed up with the whatever they call it. It's just the sled they're dragging around the whole time. It's so absurd that would be like the choice that any of them would make. Like what a burden.
We literally have to drag this guy around because if he wakes up, we're fighting. It's so awesome. I love it. Okay, and then they get closer to where we're going. We come out of this barren wasteland into this idyllic, beautiful bubbling brook and these beautiful cottages and there's grass. And it's like, oh, this is the first, I feel like this is the very first time in any of these novels that we're in this beautiful, like we're in Hobbiton, basically.
Yeah.
We're in beautiful,
Na, na,
lovely.
na,
Yeah.
na, na,
Except
na.
it's the worst. It's barely hiding these horrors underneath the surface.
Oh, that's where the cannibals are.
Yeah. Yes.
And I just love that Talk is like, we're going over there. And she's like, yeah, we're definitely going over there. We should definitely go check it out. He's like, isn't that where all of the horrifying stuff is? And she's like, let's take a closer look.
Let's walk right into it. He's like, well, we're going to be pretty obvious. We're going to be, they're going to, recognize that we're a bunch of weirdos, these giant dogs and the undead guy. Undead guy's like dust. And she's like, tiny dogs.
Yeah.
She's got the enlarged reduce spell that I know so well from D&D.
Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, shrinks the doggies into doggy size. And they knock on the old temple door. A bunch of houses here, a bunch of previously, homestead kind of useful buildings that are abandoned. But we do have this one thing that looks like it's been converted into a temple. Knock on the door. Creepy, fully shaved, pale weirdo is like, hey, welcome.
Oh, welcome.
Yeah. Introduces them to Seer Domin cult, which, let's be honest, sounds a lot like cult. A little on the nose cult. You're in a cult and your name is Cult. A little on the nose, pal. Maybe rethink that. Call me. Welcome to the cult. What should we call you? Cult? All right.
My name is I'm losing it.
You were so close.
Pyramidi Schema.
Pyramidi Schema. I love it. My name is Steal All Your Stuff. Anyway, he's a big, scary looking dude in black armor, but also smart. Also got a little schooling.
Mm-hmm.
And this scene is delicious.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the wrong word to use. But first of all, we get everybody walking in and he's like, welcome to our beautiful domain. Please don't mind the bodies hanging on hooks.
Oh, yeah.
At which point I would be like, oh, I gotta leave.
Yeah.
Peace out.
Them walking in and being like, yes, the villagers built us this temple, and this was their reward. Delivered from their sins.
Look how happy they are. They built it and now... And I feel like Talk is losing it. And Lady Envy not phased at all. Sits down. Guy's like, I want to offer you this delicious dinner. I got sick wine from the cool place that does the cool wines. It's a beautiful wine pairing with this flesh. And Lady Envy is like, give it to the dogs. Such an awesome scene where the guy's like, in our culture, that is very rude.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, in my culture, that's called being prudent.
Yeah.
It's so awesome.
The one thing I couldn't tell, I mean, I guess I assumed this, the fact that it was described not as, oh, they were like, the flesh is behedron. And I was like the flesh? I'm like, is that people on the plate? Or is the implication that it was like...
Well, hasn't it been established that those veteran things are like oxen, like big?
Oh, right. I couldn't remember. I'm so bad at word association. Yes. Yeah. It's like,
but I also
a steak.
I also would assume that it's people because they eat people.
Yes. Anyway, that's fine.
And I think that's what Lady Envy is doing. Is she's like, I'm going to test it on the dog first to make sure the dog will eat it. If the dog won't eat it, I'm not eating it. And that whole tete-a-tete, that exchange where she's just does not suffer any fool, does not give an inch. She's just completely unfazed, not scared, not intimidated, and talks like, I'll just hang on.
Yeah. Well, she was like, they were like, and your associates, your assistants, or whatever they said to her, like they're just here. These Segula are just here as your assistants. And she was seemed to imply that she was going to be like, oh, no, they're here to kill you because.
Yeah.
And then Talk is like, they're here because they want to be or whatever.
He's like, they have a message to send.
Oh, yeah,
and she's
they
like,
have a message.
that's one way to say it. One way
yes, that's what it is.
Describe it.
Like, I'm like, what would have happened in that moment if she was like, oh, they're here to kill you because they really want you to stop sending people for them to just slaughter.
Yeah.
Like, you got to wage war or don't, but the slaughter's not going to happen anymore.
Yeah. It's cool that he picks it out right away. He's like, oh, because she gives herself a fake name. Yes. But then she basically just ruins the OPSEC for everybody else.
She's like, where's that bus? Get under there.
Yeah, exactly. And she's like, there's Segula. He's like, Segula? Oh, yeah, those are the people that keep murdering our priests. Yeah, our monks. Yeah, and the ones that like keep begging us to declare war on them. and also basically says we are sending thousands of troops to murder all of them. Mm-hmm. So that feels like a foreshadowing of something that's going to come to a head later as well. Because Panyian is basically just marching and taking over everything, or attempting to. Mm-hmm. And Talk deftly, avoids a complete massacre right there, but not for long, because Lady Envy puts him to sleep, and when he wakes up, the dogs have returned to dog enormous size.
Well, before that, something I loved is like Lady Envy's read on the situation is so obvious. They like eat their meals or whatever. She's just chatting, blah, blah, blah. This is what we're here to do. And he goes, well, now you're talking so loudly, like keep it down kind of. And she's like, well, the walls are hollow and not because but not of people, you know? And so everybody knows everything basically. And while she's talking like this whole section, she's like, that was tasty. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. Very intense things. We're going to kill these people. We're going to make our way through. Wow, is this a grape? I love grapes. Like it's going back and forth between her like delight at the sort of repast that they have and like talking about their plans and then revealing that they're listening and then being like, yeah, well, that was great. Where is that monk, by the way? And he happens to emerge and she's like, wow, serendipitous that you happened to come into the room right after I said your name. Definitely random and not because you're listening at the door.
You're so right to bring that up. It's such an awesome sequence, and you get this wonderful window into who Lady Envy is, and that she's just able to juggle these complete opposites on the spectrum of, horrors and delights at the same time. It's all the same to her, right? She's talking about how wonderful this food is and how awful it's all going to be. And she is just this wonderful creation. I adore her.
Yes.
And that sequence is really when she's at her best, in my opinion. Her just kind of floating above the normal concerns of mortals, just like I'm gonna, I am so powerful that it's not gonna bother me. I can just talk about things like they're all the same, this completely urgent threat and this, frivolous enjoyment of a meal all in the same breath. Pretty cool. But then, yes, Talk wakes up from his magically induced sleep to see the dogs running wild, tossing a body through the wall, through the door, and the Segula just slaughtering everybody. No problems. Lady Envy talks about how she watched one of them, Senyu, I think, parry all of the double axe attacks from Cult, and just stab him right through the heart, no problem. And then they replace the people on hooks with the Panyian Domin folks, which is, I thought, poetic and awesome.
Yeah. They don't say much, but they say so much.
Yeah. Well, she specifically talks about how, I love that sequence too, where she talks about how language can mask things, can mask being awful.
Yeah.
But the Segula don't say anything, but they're so much more honest in doing so. But that was cool.
Yeah, I like that as well.
We also get a tidbit of Talk's backstory. He reveals to her that his mother is Cartheron Crust's sister, which was he was the predecessor to Pormqual. So he was the High Fist? High Fist, yeah?
High Fist, yeah.
Yeah, before Pormqual, our friend Pormqual.
Oh, I miss saying that name.
I know, it's so good. So they piece out of that place and enter Bastion proper.
Was this something I can't know if I don't know if I'm jumping the gun or if we missed it. At what point does Lady Envy grab Talk's face like she's gonna smooch him?
Oh yeah, I think that is right before this. Yes, she's getting irritated with him that he's behaving just like Animander Rake used to. And yeah, and then he feels the muscles in his face start to melt, and then she pulls away and says, "No, I'm not going to force it."
Yeah, because we get like Talk's internal monologue sometimes as he's like reacting to things around him. Lady Envy's in that room with Cult, and she is the way that she's speaking to him. I couldn't tell if it was just like Talk being like, I know what you're feeling because she's such a babe or whatever.
Yeah.
But he's actually been like speaking very explicitly to like the aura of magic and like the way that she uses whatever her sort of seductive charm magic is. He's like, I know that feeling. I know that you feel like your bones are melting. You feel this way. And then seeing like that moment of intensity of her like grabbing his face to kiss him and being like, no, I want you to be free. And like knowing that is something that she would so actively do that would have just been it for Talk. He would have just followed her around forever, I assume, much like the Segula are right now. But instead she let him stay released. And that description of like, he feels the jaw and his face start melting. He feels, and I imagine it's like, again, that like charm kind of magic that it's like, coming right to the precipice of that and being like, ugh, I'm like released from this like unwanted feelings of desire to serve, to be near, to whatever with this one is like very interesting.
I loved how it was described too, because you know, obviously that kind of charm is something you see a lot in fantasy stories, but I've never seen it described so physically before as this like muscle effect that the actual, you know, sinews in your body are being melting almost. It felt so much more impactful than it just like, oh, I, you know, changed my thoughts. You know, this is like this kind of brutal physical thing that happens.
And feels bad. It's not like, ooh, I feel this pleasure when I'm near. It's like, feels like unpleasant in a way that I think is a nice twist on the idea of charming somebody.
Totally. And he straight up asks her, like, what, you know, are you charming all the people around her, around you? And Lady Envy says, no, we just have common cause. So we're all hanging out. She tries to, you know, make it like, I'm not doing this to everybody, but clearly she's, the Segula, it seems that at least are, you know, kind of in her wiles, under her sway.
Well, it made me think that the fact that Talk like mentioned about Cult, like, I know what you're feeling. You feel these ways. To me, it says that she speaks. This is my interpretation. I have no idea if it's true, obviously. But the fact that she speaks in these flirty tones always, and that like to fully charm someone is a kiss, like tells me that she's speaking in the flirty ways as her like lightly weaving that magic around her at all times.
Right.
And if she were to speak more directly, maybe it would have less of an impact versus speaking so sweetly and so charmingly.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's accurate. At least that's my feeling as well. Although, you know, at the end he's like, well, what about me? And she's like, that's just because I'm a woman. She's like, that's just me being a lady. That's cool. All right. So they enter Bastion and they meet up with some other creepos, these three priests that are telling them about how all of this backstory that is super disturbing about the embrasure 14 years ago, where the Panyian Seer returned from the mountain speaking the words of truth. And that was when the first child of the dead seed was born 9 months later. And, you know, we've heard about this. And you and I, when we first heard about the children of the dead seed, I remember you saying, how does that work exactly? And we get details of how that works exactly in this chapter.
Yeah.
Not that I needed them, but woo.
The one thing that I think is the key change from what my understanding was, I think the first time that we read it, I interpreted it as they went out into the battlefield and the soldiers from their own side, they were like, it was like a way to sort of like preserve the soldiers of their people. And what I read this time is that they go out and they're like, this is your reward, people that we killed. And they actually did it to the enemy soldiers versus their own.
And the goal seems to be that there's this moment right as the soul is touching death, that if you get the seed from the mortal body, as it's touching death, it is tainted in some way. Yeah.
Empowered with icky.
yucky death stuff. It's just such a disturbing concept. And even Lady Envy is disturbed by it in that moment. She's like, it's the first time he'd ever seen her, turn white or whatever. It's just so dark. And the first child born of that process, Anaster, is the one who now leads the army of the Teniscauri. Anaster sounds a nasty, and although, as a father, I will say, isn't it always in these stories like, the evil person who has the evil offspring and they carry on the evil thing? It's like, in my experience, the kid doesn't want to follow in my footsteps, Like, I went through all this trouble of making you a child of the dead seed. And then now you don't even want to lead my cannibal army?
Dad,
come on, do what Daddy asked.
I'm a vegan, Dad. You knew that. I have to make my own way.
For once in your life, lead the cannibal army when I ask you. Sorry. Anyway, Anaster sounds very, and we see Anaster riding on this disgusting gaunt horse. And he just points his finger and screams.
Yeah.
Pretty creepo.
The one thing that I couldn't quite get from this portion of it is they, when they showed up just outside Bastion in the first place, they're like, oh, they know we're coming. They can see us, they can sense us, whatever it is. They know we're coming. We're coming from this desolate plain, and now we're here. And then as they move on to sort of like this next pocket of Panyian Domin folk, they're like, oh, they'll be waiting for us again. They must know what already happened at this other place, I assume through magic sensing, seeing puppy dogs killing everybody, or whatever that situation is. And those three priests are there, and they're like, oh, we're going to try and protect you as we go through this. And then they, have their conversations. And once that guy points and screams at them and like basically throws the horde of people that are surrounding him in their direction, they're like, oh, well, looks like we can protect you. Goodbye.
Those priests were hilarious. They're like, oh, nope, you're all going to die. Bye. Boop, boop, boop,
I couldn't tell if they like intentionally led them there so they could be like, oh no, our protection didn't work. Or if they actually were like, try to come this way, it didn't work, goodbye. I couldn't tell if it was intentional or actually accidental.
That's interesting. My assumption was that they didn't realize, for whatever reason, that Anaster's forces wanted to kill them so badly. Like, they're like, oh, they want you dead? Oh, you're definitely going to be dead then. Bye. That's my reading, but I think it's interesting if it was all a ruse to like lead them deeper into the trap.
I imagine those priests the same as like the first priest whose name I forgot, who was like hiding in the walls just listening. Like they have a super awareness of what's going on, but under this facade of being like very cowed and like, I'm here to serve. Oh no. It turns out I know all of your plans. But
certainly possible.
I don't know if it matters or not. I just couldn't get a read on whether or not they were earnestly like, ooh, our people are really riled up over there. Sorry, we didn't realize that.
I don't know. That's interesting. I think it could definitely be either one. The another interesting part here is that the Teniscauri and the Nastor charge them, Lady Envy and the Segula. She's like, all right, it's on, making the dogs even bigger. We're doing this. And our boy Talk is like, nope, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm joining the other side, in fact, because they're going to take me to my friends.
Mm-hmm.
Don't murder all of them because I got to ride with the creepos for a while. What did you make of that?
They said, and they arrived in the first place, like, hey, you're going to convert or you're going to die. I mean, be rewarded.
Right.
And so I guess Talk being like, I'm converted now is enough to just say that. But I also wondered, like, why did he need them to go to where he's going? Is it that he just doesn't know where the Malazans are? I think they mentioned that they were in Kepistan, but I can't tell why he deemed that he needed them.
Yeah.
That was not apparent to me.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of setup is in regard to his change of heart, because they keep talking about he keeps saying, I'm dead anyway. What am I even doing? Why am I even attempting to do this? You guys are all super powerful. I'm just a guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be murdered immediately. They're gonna eat me. So I think I see how that's motivated, in the sense of him going, well, I'm gonna just blend in and try to join them and keep my head down and not get eaten because I'm one of the eaters instead of the eatees.
Mm-hmm.
Harder to swallow, because everything about Lady Envy and the gang indicates that they're going to have no problem staying alive, that they're just going to mow through these hordes of Penny and Doman.
The fact that he had to request, like, oh, don't kill them all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because they will kill them all.
So I feel like you're safe for staying with the super powerful, potent people that like you.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm like ready for chapter 11 to be like,
it's a hard left turn.
That?
Yeah. It's a hard left turn for Talk in this moment. Maybe we'll understand it better moving forward. But it felt to me like, buddy, what are you even doing? You're with the coolest, safest people who, Lady Envy basically says, I'm going to make sure you stay alive. Don't worry. That's who I'm staying with, You
bonded with one of those giant dogs that clearly is just mowing through these people. Just stay bonded with your puppy friend.
Yeah. Felt like a hard left turn, but we'll see how it pans out.
Could you remind me, was it Lady Envy that got, like, who does Talk know that something's going to happen to him that he won't forgive them for? I forget.
No, I don't think he was privy to that exchange, but he keeps sensing that he's toast. Like, he keeps saying over and over, like, what am I even doing here? I'm going to die. These guys, I have no chance. So I don't think he was privy to that specific conversation of, like, we're leading him into the...
Yeah. Swacky.
All right. Chapter 10 starts with Gruntle waking up. He's been in a week-long drunken stupor, 6 days. He's been just...
binging it up,
mourning the loss of his friend Harlow,
or avoiding mourning is more apt.
You're right. Good point. And dude, just one of my favorite characters, Buke. I love Buke. I just love Buke, and this whole sequence, this scene with him talking to Stani and talking to Buke, and them, waking him up, and Buke makes him puke. Which is awesome. It's so, like, when I was in college, it's like boot and rally. He's like, I can't even have a conversation with you. He's like, throw up. He's like, blah. He's like, oh, I'm back. Okay, what were we talking about?
I think that's so interesting that you love Buke so much, because from my perspective, maybe because he's one of those characters that isn't super at the forefront of most of the action, he kind of recedes in my mind. I love that he's a character that you like so much, because I'm like, wait, he's just a guy who's, like, made some bad choices, and he's like, no, I can't get out.
His honorable decisions, that he keeps, he went through that awful thing, and we find out in this section that he, literally has scars on his arms because he dug through the still smoldering ashes looking for
know.
his family. Like what an image that is.
Actually, when I read that, I was like, oh, Jeff's gonna love that line.
It's true. It's true. And he's committed to stopping Broach and Beauchelain. Like he's committed to preventing them from murdering more people, even though he realizes that they're so powerful that they can't actually confront them. They can't actually stop them because they need them. And it's such an awesome
But he still
dynamic.
wants to thwart him. Like, he's like, we can't stop them. We can't make them mad at us because they will unleash some nasty fury on us. But if I can thwart him in the meantime and have him kill fewer people, then they can unleash all that nastiness at the Panyian.
It's just I love the predicament that Erikson puts them in. It's keep your friends close and your enemies closer type of a deal. We can use these are horrible, awful people that do horrible, awful things. But if we stop them too quickly, they'll do their horrible, awful things to us.
Yeah.
We can harness their horrible and awful nature and use it against the people we need to stop. Really cool. But in order to do that, we got to also make sure that they don't murder more people because they keep stealing organs from.
I like these characters and this sort of what I picture in my brain as the side. Here's why I think it reads as like a side mission to me, even though it's clearly like right there. So this is a bit of a tangent, but in my own D&D campaign, we're playing a Zeitgeist campaign, which is a setting that's more industrial era, and we're basically like the FBI solving crimes.
That's
and there's
cool.
one time that the journey took us, we're on this long train ride, and there's all these like potential sort of suspects for this thing we're trying to investigate. And we went down this rabbit hole of something that mattered so little. And then later when we go get on the train, there's a bunch of other cops like arresting one of the other passengers. We're like, we wonder what happened there. And it turned out he was like a murderer murdering everybody. And there was like posters everywhere for like missing women, missing person.
You missed all of it?
We missed all of it. We're like, I guess he murdered a bunch of people. And our DM was like, ugh. And to me, this is that person in my brain is now Beauchelain and Corval Broach being like these two bros who are just like overdoing their things. And people are like, ugh, just let him ride.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out later. Is tied so directly into my own D&D experiences reading that section of it. It just makes me giggle about those nasty creepos, little nasties.
Totally delightful. And the fact that they are constantly described as being so powerful is intriguing too, right?
Well, something I don't think we even really talked about, maybe we just lightly touched on it, where they like in the last two books, they're like, oh, here's our cart. We'll fix it. And they fixed it by making it like a horrifying skin bone cart. And everybody was just kind of like, I don't like that. And again, we're like, anyway, just don't look at it. It kind of feels like that's what everybody's attitude is towards them. But obviously just fixing their cart is like this necromantic skin machine.
Yeah.
On a just whip that up is
everything they do is terrifying, but I don't think we even have the full picture of what they're capable of, because it keeps happening where like, oh my gosh, we're gonna get attacked by all the the Kell hunters. We black out, we wake up, and they're both fine. Like, hey, why is everybody so upset? Like, they're all dead. They just seem. The mystique of them is so well established, and I think that's pretty neat. So we also find out that that the people are buying property in town, even though it's about to be overrun by the cannibal army. But what's his name? What's their master's name? The guy that we're working for, because of the K also. Corelli. Yeah, Corelli has purchased a dilapidated estate manor in town, and he's like, I just imagine him with the real estate agent, like, she's like, well, some bad news and some worse news. The first is, great location.
Cozy.
Other than the fact that it's about to be completely overrun by
Cannibals.
hundreds of thousands of screaming cannibals that will murder you and then have sex with your corpse. Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm fine with that. What's the worst news? Oh, someone has already died in your house a week ago. They committed suicide. I'll take it.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
It's perfect. Oh, wait, somebody just died in here? Oh my God. You know what? I'll throw an extra.
That's what I'm looking for.
I needed the cleanse. The suicide, you say? Maybe they were crawling around holding their own entrails, which made it seem like maybe they regretted it, but we are still saying we're sticking with suicide.
How much blood was spilt? Oh, that's the perfect amount for my elder god. And I also, it's also interesting that Stani is like 100% in camp. Was Karuli? Am I saying that right? Karuli?
Karuli.
I don't have it in front of me, so I'm doing it from memory.
That's like the guy they were working with before, right? And then she's like, he's so kind. His God doesn't want anything from you. He's the bomb. I didn't realize how much the bomb is. He's a bomb, bro.
She is 100% converted. She's seen the light. His elder god saved all of them. And so she's going to be devoted to that elder god and to him. And I can't get a read on whether this guy is
manipulating her.
Yeah. Well, if he's in general, just sort of good or bad, if he's, because we have that thing where he's like, I've been meditating and all of the people that killed themselves, I made sure their souls are cool. They're all protected and now they're happy. And I'm just living in their house of blood, but they're feeling better.
But
like, well, is
I
that
didn't
a
need
lie?
the blood. My God needed the blood, but I didn't need the blood.
Yeah.
And so I'm a good guy.
Yeah.
The thing I think is interesting about this character is the turn from how I perceived him versus like when he was like in the carriage mostly, but still like witnessing.
Yeah.
Or like listening constantly versus this like namaste kind of, because I definitely got the idea that he is like calm meditation, all's forgiven, I'm so glad that you came, we're square, bro.
Yeah.
Versus in the cart, at least in my head, his voice was very impatient. Like, you think I didn't already hear that? I heard it. No, we don't want it. Yes,
right.
We want this. And so I can't tell if I misread earlier and he was actually like, I heard you. I already know we don't need it. But, and like, it's like a peacefulness, or if he's like sassier than he sounded in this chapter, but it feels like two different people.
I get it. I have a distrust. I have a suspicion with him. Like, I feel like all that stuff is not on the up and up with regard to him. Like, I took care of all the people here, but maybe he's cool. We'll see. And then, unless I'm skipping something, I love the fact that we got like this cool quest where Buke and Gruntle are gonna try to shadow Brooch and Beauchelin and prevent them from murdering other people. Like, just that alone feels like it could be its own novel. I just love that thing that we're about to witness. That's cool. And then the rest of the chapter basically is hanging out with Idkovian.
Well, just before that, was it Karuli? Then he gave Gruntle the clay thing for Bolt to eat.
Yeah,
Bolt.
Right.
Buke, for Buke to eat.
Yes.
He's like, here's a little clay bird. Have him mush it up in some water, chug the solution. And then not only will it give him like some sort of sense of secrecy
helps
that he
tummy,
requires.
Helps his little tum-tums first.
Yeah.
That's the most important part.
Pepto-Bismol.
Yeah, there's effervescence that helps down there, but also probably
keeps you regular,
superpowers.
Keeps you regular, but also helps allies find you. Definitely allies find you.
Soft BMs and superpowers. It's a potent combo.
Who could ask for more? I literally couldn't. Sometimes I say that would be what I want my superpower to be. So now it feels like a +1, you get the bonus.
Yeah. Super cool. Yes. I'm glad you flagged that because that was a neat moment. And then we're hanging out with Idkovian. I love that when we check back in with Idkovian, he's like, I'm starting to relate a lot with this character too, because he's like, I'm the only one who's ever on time. Everyone is late. They're going to be annoyed that we're all late, and it's not my fault. I love that because that's me in every situation. I'm always like, I'm here 10 minutes early.
And I relate to everybody else who definitely left the building fully and then forgot every piece of thing that they needed, but not remembered that they forgot everything, but one at a time left the building. Oh, I forgot my keys. Come back. Oh, I forgot my phone. I get it.
You're like Hayton. She's like, she left the house and she's like, I forgot to paint my face white. I'm a whiteface clan. I can't leave the house without painting my...
I gotta put the ashes on. How are people know I'm mourning, bro? People gotta know. People gotta know 2 things about me. 1, I'm mourning. 2, we're gonna bang.
Yeah.
Wait. What vows? Huh?
She's
what
so
vows?
fun. She's so fun. I love how she's like, hey, Idkovian, we're totally doing it. He's like, he's like, you are mistaken. He's like, oh, what about your vows, bro? And he's like, yeah, no, she's mistaken.
Yeah.
Not doing it. And then
I love the reveal of his vows. She's like, we're gonna bang. And you're kind of like, yeah, we've seen this earlier in the book. And then the fact that somebody else is like, hey, I thought you didn't do that stuff. And he's like, I'm not part of this.
I didn't say we were.
She's the one who say that.
And then at the end of the chapter, his boss is like, you're going to do anything necessary, right? And he's like, oh.
He's like, but my vows. He's like, anything.
You're totally banging her.
You're welcome.
That's amazing. It's so amazing. But they finally arrive. She tells them, I'm totally banging you, bro. And he's like, well, why do you even want to, maybe we could all unite and try to, not all be murdered by the Panyian Domin and have them completely destroy everybody in like half a day. And she's like, oh, no, we're not helping you. It's like, well, if you did, how many people could you? Oh, she's like, oh, like we got 70,000 people just ready to help, but we're not helping.
Like, but they're going to come for you.
In here? What are you even going to ask? And she's like, hush. I'm not telling you. You're going to surprise for later. They go into the mask council. 14 priests, all in these weird masks that can change expression.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool, but also like kind of creepy.
Oh, certainly creepy. Yeah. I think intentionally creepy. But I like how we don't really even get an explanation as to how they do it. Like, is it a mechanical thing or is it magical?
It said that they were like clayish and they kind of are mushing between shapes.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But
I like to
also
picture
said they were hinged. They were hinged. So I was like, is it like a weird mechanical thing that's changing them?
Yeah. Like every time they change expressions, you get like that, like a little creaking of the gears. It's creepy. I like to picture it as hexadecimal from Reboot for all the Reboot fans out there.
There you go. Nice. And this whole section is wild. Erikson establishes a level of tension here that is pretty awesome. And again, he's able to do that in scene after scene of just people talking, these meetings that are just so page turning and tense and thrilling. I love it. So we have a lot of information about the Barghast, and basically Hayton and Crew's whole point is, hey, this was our land. You guys are on it. We've been petitioning. The whole reveal of her being like, all right, here's what I want. And they're like, you've asked this 1,000 times. Yeah. It was such a cool turn, just that alone, because you have the tension of like, I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to ask. She walks in and then everybody in there is like, you've been here 1,000 times. So cool.
I loved it, and just like the turn of like I felt like every sentence and every like the level of despicable of the mask council goes up and up, and the level of
Yeah.
honorability of the Barghest also goes up and up. But like this moment that she's like, "This is what we want," and they're like, the fact that she's asked 1,000 times, and they're like, "This land was empty." She's like, "You don't live in your cemeteries."
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Such a cool thing. Such a cool
like
retort.
what do you expect? It's still like our space and like a sacred space. And they're like, "We'll just move it." And they're like, "We're not going to just move the land." They're like, "Oh no, what you want, like they said move the relics." And they're like, "Well, we don't not here for relics, bro. We're here
Yeah.
for like the land." And then all the masked folks are like, "Well, are you here for the land, or are you here for like the bones from the cemetery?" Because I don't want to say that we definitely know where like most of the bones are, but we can get them for you like real
Why do you
quick
keep looking
if you
down?
wish.
Why do you keep
Yeah.
looking down at the floor? Every time you say bones, you look down at the floor. Why do you do that?
We don't know where the bones are necessarily, unless when I say I give you the bones, you promise to leave.
They could be anywhere. I don't know where they are. They could be. And I mean, she's literally like, all we want to do is visit them. We just want to come visit the bones. Can't we just visit them? And they're like, well, what if you help us with the war? And she's like, we're not helping you with the war. I said, well, what if we let you have the bones, and then maybe you reconsider about the war? This whole sequence is so rad. And then they're like, okay, well, maybe we'll show you where the bones are. She's like, well, take us to them. He's like, just stand right there.
And then they're like right beneath their feet. It's to me, it's like so disgusting of like, what's it called? Like
imperialism,
colonizer, disgusting.
Yeah.
Disgustingness is like
colonialism,
so real.
Yeah.
I feel like there's like constant stories emerging about that, of like people revealing stuff like that happening in Canada. It's like so relevant, and I don't remember when the year that this book was written, but it's so resonant when I read it, but it also makes me so mad when something that is written however long ago is still like the bad parts are still so relevant now. It's like, ugh, makes me very angry about current society, but it's neither here nor there. This is a very cool scene, and they reveal, in case anybody's listening to just hear the plot of the story while we're talking, they reveal that all the bones and the ships that they found them in these burrows, or the barrows, were just buried but preserved under the floor where they built their like council chamber.
Yeah.
Ugh.
In these hollowed out canoes, and evidently they moved them, a lot of them there. They're like, we did it. We respectfully moved them there. And they're just like in piles and heaps, all wrapped in sails.
In the boats. Yeah.
I also thought it was interesting because we've heard about these hollowed out canoes before. Remember that guy, Talamandus, or whatever his name is, the stick boy, the stick spirit that was trapped in the sticks? He's also looking for the Barghest bones, right? Because these are the original people, the bones of the people who became their spirits, who became their gods, right? They ascended to godhood, and these are their physical remains. So he's looking for them too, I think for a different purpose, right? We've heard about this before.
Well, he is I forget who he was talking to now.
It was, wasn't it Quick Ben?
Yeah, it was Quick Ben, and he was like, I'm going to give you all the deets that I didn't give that other guy, because then you can talk to the Barghest and they'll know you're legit.
Yeah.
And the details that he was giving him was about the Barghest being the seafaring people that came from across the land. Or they're related. They're all traced back to like the Tisti origin.
Yes. So we learn a lot of stuff here. About as you said, the origin of because they were
they are like the descendants of Talon,
right?
Or like what the Talanomas would have been if they didn't take the ritual. That's what the Barghest are. But from this, I thought we learned that it sort of goes all the way back, and then we have like the three different sort of Tisti
Yeah, because the Tisti Adur, which is one of the original 3 of those Tistis, they have a different name for, but you can hear it. You can hear how it. Oh, the Tisti Adur. And by the way, first time I think in these novels that we actually get a clue as to pronunciation of anything.
It's a glottal stop.
It's a glottal stop, so it's Tisti.
Yeah.
Tisti.
Tisti.
Tetlan. Tetlan itmas, right?
Yeah.
Tetlan. So if there's an apostrophe, it's a glottal stop. Pretty good. Pretty
Got
cool.
him.
So now I got to do that.
Thanks, Steve.
Finally. Yeah. So all of that is connected. There's all this stuff. It's a really complicated scene because we have these workers coming in, digging up the stones, like breaking apart this ornate floor and digging up and opening this hole and putting lanterns down in there and finding all this stuff, while these priests, the masked council is like, hey, sidebar, I want to talk to you about all this other worrisome stuff, dudes, about how there's going to be, the tiger of summer is dead, and by the way, one of our priests is still powerful, which he shouldn't be if Trake is dead. So
he's
what's
not only
that
powerful,
about?
he's like smiling it up. He's like living his best life.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make sense. And then the what's it called? The desiccant, the priest guy.
Destriant.
The Destriant. He's like, we're uncovering this ground. Those spirits, they are here. They are flooding this room. They are present with us. There's like a lot of different moving pieces that we're sort of witnessing through this scene.
It was such a tense moment. And then we have, Idkovian putting together the thing that Carnatus has already put together. And they're like, oh, I see what's happening here. The leader of the Barghast, Hetan's father, is trying this desperate gambit to unite all the Barghast clans, and the only way he can do that is to get these bones. These bones are what everybody's going to be all about. And so they're like, there's this desperate gambit of uniting the Barghast clans. Meanwhile, as you said, the Toblakai, the Barghast, and the Trell are all descended from the same ancestors. So much information happening here. And then strangely, Kafal and Hetan say, okay, we're not moving the bones right now. We're going to leave them here. So I'm not sure exactly how all this is going to play out, but it feels like there is a possibility, and tell me if you read the same way. It seems like there is a possibility that the Barghast, the white clan, the white-faced Barghast, and maybe even all the united Barghast clans will join in and defend against the Panyian's invasion. Like, I feel like this is the way they're going to get there. Even though she kept saying over and over, we're not helping you, we're not helping you. I feel like this is the way that they win the impossible, take the impossible stand and, stand against the impossible odds, is that they get reinforcements from the Barghast.
I think that seems possible, but I don't know if the Barghast are like too honorable or too like, would they stand on the word of being like, we are not helping you? They might come in and be like, oh, we're helping ourselves, because they mentioned several times, like, if once they kill us, they're coming for you next. And they're like, yeah, we know. But I can imagine them like coming in clutch at the end, but I don't know. I also could see them being like, yeah, but you stole all our land and our bones, and so good luck to you, and then we'll fight our own fight, and if we lose, we lose, but we're not helping you because we don't like you. But they seem to get along well enough with Idkovian, or they're gonna. So who knows what kind of alliances will be forged in the night.
The Tisti Adur also are described almost like aliens. Like, they have almond-shaped eyes and gray skin. It reminds me of, the sort of common Area 51 alien depiction. That's what I pictured in my head.
Oh, I pictured like drow, I think.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, I I loved that they were like, oh, those are the evil ones. They went to we found out about another possible continent. They were like, there's like the history says that they pieced out and they went to the forests and just live in their darkness in the forest.
Yeah.
But we don't know where that would be. And then somebody's like, I've actually heard of another continent like way south of here that is exactly that description. So that might just really be happening down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you make of all this stuff with there being 2 gods of war, 2 gods of summer, with Fenner and Trake, and the fact that Trake is supposed to be dead, and we've already heard that Fenner is going to be the first god murdered by the Panyian Domin. I think there's a lot of stuff there that I'm not quite grokking exactly how it plays at the moment.
I agree that I'm not quite grasping the significance because they're like, there can't possibly be 2. And I'm like, but there has been 2 like this whole time. No? Like,
I just don't think they've both claimed to be the Lords of Summer, or what do they call them? The Boys of Summer.
haven't they though?
I don't know.
Because when was the Tiger of Summer? And I don't know if they ever called him the Boar of Summer, but he was always...
Man, my kids are constantly telling me about the Boar of Summer. I'm glad school's back in, so I don't have to hear about the Boar of Summer anymore.
I feel like, there's something I'm missing there about that significance. But we also do, like, the thing that, I guess the only piece that I keep coming back to is the fact that Fenner is like here somewhere.
Yeah.
Quote unquote, here somewhere, right? They saw that giant foot back in was that the first? No, that was the second book because it was Felison and crew.
Heborek touched the green winkus.
Finger.
Yeah.
And then apparently, Fenner's not around. They're like, yo, your god's dying. But I'm like, I think the god is just like present somewhere, either in Heborek, out in Raraku. I'm not sure. But that's the only significance that I can really think of. But then also if the Tiger of Summer is like dead, but we presume elsewhere in somebody else's body, I'm kind of like, maybe there's actually no gods of summer.
Well, we know that Fenner is terrified also.
Yes.
He's scared. So, I'm not, this percolates, right? This percolates.
Yes.
And we will see how it all plays out. The other interesting thing here is that the Moranth are brought in to the mix here, and Kafal understands the Moranth language because they are also related to the Barghast, and the Moranth like peeled off and covered their faces and became insect people, but they're all sort of all interconnected. Interesting.
Yeah. And also something I'm realizing as I'm talking is this book and the previous book were simultaneous, right? Like we don't know if, like maybe Heborek hasn't gone and touched the Fingy yet.
Oh, good point. Yeah, right. This is a concurrent. They're happening concurrently.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah. Interesting. So we leave with Idkovian being told, find out any means necessary, i.e. bang that lady. And so, that's the end of chapter 10. I think both of these chapters I thought were really fun reads, really fun. Like we got some dark stuff in both of them, but they really were super fun, and lots of juicy stuff is still happening. And I feel like we're just barreling down the road toward the big confrontation with the Panyian Domin and the defense of
there's one more.
The name of the town begins with C.
Capistan.
Capistan, thank you.
There's one more thing that came up. I think I forget who was talking to whom, but the idea that they have to siege, possibly they have to somehow try and extend the siege to 6 weeks. I forget when this happened, and they're like, the Panyian fully expects to just bust through with their Kel hunters.
Yeah.
And just take over. And but what they don't know is that we're going to have a bajillion Telenamas come and just dispel them easily. And then we got the information that previously somebody was able to hold off on a siege for 3 weeks. And they're like, great, we need to do double that.
Yeah.
So that we can make sure
in a less defended city. Yeah.
Yeah. So that we can make sure that the Malazans get here to back us up. And then we'll maybe be fine, maybe.
Yeah.
And
That was rad. Where they're like, we got the Talana Moss, and like, yeah, well, they're only going to kill the
hunters,
the
basically.
Kachan Shamal. That's the only thing they care about murdering. So they'll do that, which the Panyian Seer is not expecting. So that'll confuse him, but we don't know for how long that'll confuse him and what he'll assume that means. And will he assume that they'll also fight? All of those particulars of the planning were really juicy and fun.
And even the fact that they were like, the Seer, he'll take, like, once that happens, he'll take the time to regroup. But he'll just be thinking of the right plan of attack. And then once he does it again, it will be definite.
And Idkovian's like, it's impossible. And he's like, well, we got to figure out a way to make
it possible. Make it possible.
But that's why I think all of this is leading to the Barghast helping, even though they keep saying they're not going to help. I feel like that's how you make the impossible possible. And, but I could be wrong, but that's my intuition at this point about all this stuff.
No, I think you're right. I'm wondering if, again, because these books are happening concurrently, if we're going to get those Talon who go to that ship to go find that one, like the people who stole that boat and cut the heads off those people and made them work, to be like, oh, they're dead actually. And then if those, I forget the names of those Telenomas who were on that boat, or if they even gave their names, or if they just were there seeking out their enemies.
They specifically call out that methodology of like, yeah, they used to cut heads off and make the bodies work forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if we're going to get those Talon coming over and and then maybe the Talon are the folks being like, we found your spear, that person's dead, help us now. Or like how I want to go, I'm sure that somebody's made it, like actually like lay out the timeline of events that is happening across both of these books and see how they stack up together. Because we only have like the 2 touch points of like, when is Quick Ben going to be bleeding out?
Right.
And
right. I know you're so excited to find out when that happens.
I can't wait to see when Quick Ben has a really bad time. And there's one other touch point, Dujek, I think at some point, maybe. Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody has. I'm just terrified of spoilers and searching. I
don't even want to Google the word Malazan. I am so worried. Like I went to the Reddit that one time, and even like the non-spoilery, quote unquote non-spoilery like headings of things, I'm like, but if I see somebody's name and it talks about book 5 and mentioning a name, at least I know that it'll take away the drama from that person forever if they're ever in a situation where they might die. I'm like, I can't. I'm in a black box. Nobody talk to me. Don't look at me. I hate the internet.
Even somebody delightful. We love your comments. We love your interaction in the Discord, all that stuff. But somebody was like, "Oh, you guys just met Idkovian. He's one of my favorite characters." I was like, "Oh, I don't even want to know because I know. I don't even want to know that he persists." Anyway, so good though. We're having a great time, and honestly, thank you so much for your corrections, for your comments, for your enthusiasm. We live for it, so thank you. Also live for great sentences in these books. I thought there were some really great ones this week to choose from. Do you have a favorite?
I have a whole bunch, but I won't pick a whole bunch. I'll just read one, maybe 2. So I think one of my favorite sentences. I had a bunch, but I think I gotta go with this bit of action of Mock, our first real glimpse into what Mock can actually do.
Yeah.
And this is when the hunter is coming for their group, and we've seen them just demolish, Idkovian's whole wing of armor of his soldiers. And then this is Mock dealing with one of them. The beast's huge arms flew past to either side of the third, both severed at the shoulder joint by the flanking brothers in their single pass. Mock's swords darted upward, stabbed, cut, twisted, hooked, then withdrew with the hunter's massive head balanced on the tips for the briefest of moments before the third flung its blade-bending weight aside and leapt to the right, barely avoiding the decapitated body's forward pitch.
Badassery.
Badass.
Very cool. Well, You know that I have to pick out something that my boy Buke said because I love his pep talk to Gruntle. Gruntle, here it is. Gruntle groaned when he's talking about Harlow. He says, "A pointless, senseless death." And Buke says, "They're all pointless and senseless, friend, until the living carve meaning out of them. What are you going to carve, Gruntle, out of Harlow's death? Take my advice. An empty cave offers no comfort. I ain't looking for comfort. You'd better. No other goal is worthwhile, and I should know." Pretty good. Pretty good.
Okay, I have one more.
Me too. Go ahead.
Okay, good. Mine is closer to the end of chapter 10 with Berkelion talking about the siege that's going to come upon the city. "This siege," Berkelion growled, eyes clouding with some inner vision, "is a bloodied flower, and before this day is done, it shall unfold before us. And in grasping the stalk, we shall discover its thorns."
So good. So good.
Beautiful.
I also liked the flower imagery when Hetan was like, when he was like, "Well, aren't you in mourning?" And she's like, "Yeah, mourning is like looking at a dead flower, but betting a man is like remembering how great flowers are."
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, that's such a great line." But my other one is in this wonderful scene with Lady Envy and Cult, and she says, "Why build a temple in such a paltry settlement, particularly if you then execute all the inhabitants?" "The inhabitants were rewarded, not executed," Cult said, face darkening. "We only execute criminals." "And the victims were satisfied with the distinction?" I love that line. They were cool with you.
Oh,
That's a
everybody
reward.
got that? Everybody felt the same way? Okay.
They
That
were
was mutual?
But then his retort is pretty awesome too. And he goes, "Perhaps you might inquire that of them yourselves before too long, lady."
Dang.
He's basically like, "I'm gonna murder you if you keep talking like that." So good. So good. Awesome. All right. We also end each of these programs with recommendations of other books. And actually, I'd love to put the call out to you, our viewers, our listeners, for books that you would recommend. We want to hear from you. We've been spouting off on books that we like for many episodes now, but I want to hear from you. Shed some light on maybe novels that we should check out, that we should make ourselves aware of, and I'll put on my Goodreads to read list. It doesn't have to be fantasy. It can be of any genre. It can be fiction or nonfiction. We just love hearing about great books that you love. So please, either you can email us, actually, dlcfeedback@gmail.com. You can email us recommendations, or you can post them in the Discord or as a comment here on the video. However you'd like to reach out to us. We'd love to hear great book recommendations from you that we can then feature on future episodes as well. But Lana, do you have a recommendation of something else for folks to check out?
I do. And just to show that it could be any genre, any style, I'm recommending Persepolis. I do believe it is Persepolis and not Persepolis. But it is an autobiographical graphic novel series by Marjan Satrapi, which is about her life during growing up during the Islamic Revolution in Iran. And it is a beautiful story of, coming of age as a young girl into young womanhood, but also the relationship and like the troubled relationship she has with her family, with like the revolution, how she's experienced the revolution, and eventually, like her separation from her family and how that impacts her life. And it is very cool, clean, beautiful art, and it's a very awesome story. You can get the whole, I think it was originally like a series of graphic novels, but you can get the whole Persepolis book as a complete sort of novel. And it's fantastic. They also made it into an award-winning animated movie, but I do recommend the book.
I have not seen the movie. Is it good?
It's the same art style as the comic because it's so simple and graphic. It's really lovely. Yeah.
Wonderful. My book review this week is a book I received as a gift from our friend in common, Danish Syed. He came and visited me here in Denver and gifted me a book called The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. People on the internet may know John and his brother Hank. They are quite famous YouTubers in their own right, bloggers, vloggers, just great thinkers, incredibly interesting dudes who have done a long-running series of communications back and forth that they publish as videos about all kinds of interesting topics. And this is a series of essays that John Green has written. He's also a novelist. I've never read any of his novels, but man, these essays are phenomenal. I like in the first 3 pages, I think I was crying. It's the Anthropocene Reviewed. If you don't know the term, the Anthropocene, this is describing a period in the Earth's existence that is characterized by human beings ruining it. Ruining it is what I would say. Other people would say having a big influence on the planet. But it's the period in which we as human beings have had the biggest impact on how things have changed and evolved. There's different time periods where different things have affected the planet. We are the thing that have affected the planet the most now. And this is a series of really interesting, it's as if someone was a reviewer for various things in the world that have affected the world. And so John Green goes through and gives things like 4 stars, 5 stars, but writes an essay on, just random topics, but it's always really eloquent and insightful and beautifully written. So I highly recommend The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. All right. That's it for this episode of the Book Club. Thank you for hanging out with us. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for all your interaction. We really love it. We'll see you next week. I don't know how many chapters we're doing. I'm not even going to posit it. I don't know. We think 2 or 3?
2 or 3. We can add it to the description of the video after we figure it out.
Good idea.
So we can edit that after the fact when we actually know.
Yeah. And we're waiting for someone to tell us. All right. We'll see you guys next time. Let's dance it out, shall we?
When the world's too dark of a place to be, and you need an escape from reality, open up those pages, a sci-fi or fantasy, whatever genre you please. Join a book club, 'cause you won't read it on your own. Join a book club, so you'll be held accountable. It's just a means to an end, but you're doing it with your friends, so join the book club.